Thanks for being here. Some of you are required to be here, but some of you are not.
Oh dear. We'll make it with you all.
Yeah. So it's been really great. I'm glad you're here, and it's going to be, I think, a really great night. For those of you that are here for our volunteer little appreciation lunch, you have no idea how much that helps us all the time. So for those of you that are volunteers, really thank you so much, because we're going to keep trying to do things like this for you, because it's a big, big help to us. There's no way that what we do here could happen without your help. So it means a lot, and it helps a lot, so thank you. So we have two, I think, really amazing people that are going to talk with you tonight. Polly Apfelbaum, who is here. Some of you attended her lecture last night. This is going to be a little bit, it's going to be far different from that, in that we're going to be speaking mostly about this work and then kind of her practice more broadly. So if you've had any questions since then, last night or something, now's the time you can kind of talk about that. And for those of you that were not at the lecture, you can ask questions about how this installation relates to her work and what it is that she's doing. After this, we'll move upstairs, still without shoes or socks, and we're going to talk with Mildred Beltray, who some of you know, because she's a professor at UVM. So we're going to be talking about her show. And then I want you to be thinking, when we're up there and down here, these two artists are here together for a reason, I think, hopefully. So I'd like you to start thinking about what relationship the two of them in their work have to each other. And why they could be a good or not good fit for work, or complementary or antagonistic to each other even. So with, I think, that just quick introduction, we're going to let Polly talk a little bit.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, it's nice to be here, and I want to thank DJ and Ashley and everybody for making this possible. So I don't know what of you know of my work, but this is a little bit different. It usually is on the floor. But what's really nice about this new work, which is called Evergreen Blueshoes, is that it's the first time I've ever had work that you can sit on. And so they are rugs. They were hand woven in Oaxaca, Mexico, hand dyed, hand everything. And what's kind of amazing, it's also, men are in charge of weaving in Oaxaca. And what I did is I come out of painting and sculpture and installation. So I kind of wanted to make an environment that had to do with the color green, because green is the color of Vermont, and it sort of is, for me, an interesting color. And color has so much to do with my work, but also the emotion of color, the kind of ideas behind color, what color can do. So, but also the physicality of color. So when DJ asked me to do this project, the time I was living last year in Rome, Italy. I was at the American Academy in Rome, and what Rome sort of brought me to thinking about color and place and situation. And so this whole idea of installation, but really, usually my work dealt with color, but didn't really think specifically about place. So when I got back from Rome, and this is the first new work I have work out in Portland, Oregon. It's the work that I did in Rome. But I wanted to think about Vermont, and I had it's curious, my experience with Vermont is probably, this a kind of cliche of Vermont, but I also spent my childhood summers at camp in Vermont, at a very progressive camp. And so I was thinking about a whole idea of the 60s, that was the time I was in camp, and a kind of alternative lifestyle. And alternative is a really interesting word. I started showing in the New York art world during the kind of alternative world, and the kind of alternative spaces, this could be considered an alternative space, nonprofit spaces, are the spaces that I really think artists grow in and where you can experiment. So I wanted this show really to see work differently. I've never fabricated. I have worked with rugs, and it's kind of curious, but not in a one-person show and not in the context of my work. So I think of this, they are for me big monochromatic paintings. I like the idea you guys are walking on my work and walking on painting. I think it's a really interesting, kind of funny, but an interesting idea. So I also think of work kind of, I'm a contrary person. I like the role reversal, that why can't a painting? You know, there's sand painting, there's all different kinds of traditions with painting, and there's also different ideas of painting and the floor, and how in post-minimalism too. So I'm also, what I did and how I came across, it's funny, what's different now, what I like, we have the internet. So yes, everything was, these were hand done, and I'm very interested in craft, and I raided the BCA ceramics studio, which is something I'm very interested in. I'm taking a ceramics class now. So there is this idea of hand and craft in the work. And, but I went to the internet and I was really interested. I typed in green, and I'm also interested in film and music, and this band came up. It's called Evergreen Blueshoes. So I just got this album cover. But we decided, and I'm working with an intern, we decided to use the artwork, which I thought was great. It's kind of curious because on one hand, it's really out of focus. You know, here you have this wild orgy scene, you know, people dancing in the grass, but you can't see any of their genitalia. So it's kind of been, you know, cleaned up. So on one hand, it's the idea of something, you know, of freedom and alternative and experiment lifestyle, but it's also been kind of, you know, photoshopped over. So this is the album, and they're California, they're not Vermont, but I still thought it was great. And so we have the two colors. This room is this image, and this room with the kind of this guy, and I think this guy is this guy, which is really funny. So this was the kind of, and I love the idea, Evergreen Blueshoes. So there are two blue footprints on the rugs, and I like the idea that, you know, you can come almost like a dance pattern and just stand in. It's almost like a signature, but it's my footprint instead of my handprint and instead of my fingerprint. So that's a very important, and I chose 4 greens. Whether they're actual evergreens or not, it doesn't really matter. And you know, the way I kind of, everything I do is kind of backwards. And so, you know, I thought that this was the Evergreen State. I have a show in Portland, that's the Evergreen State. This is the Green Mountain State. So it's like, it doesn't really matter, it's all green. And so then we also decided to paint the walls green too. So everything that I do in recent times has a book involved in it. So, but usually it's a paper book. So the new thing for me too is I decided I wanted to do just kind of this documentation of the work that went into this project. So you'll see, and I found very simple. Everything I do, I really like simple, do-it-yourself. This was a little bit out of my comfort zone because the wallpaper was printed by somebody else, the rugs were made by somebody else, but it's still this kind of idea of craft. So here you can kind of see the planning that went into the, and we designed the posters too. We even designed the type, taking the type. So I'm really interested in this idea of ephemera. You know, I was walking around, it's really interesting that Burlington is very lucky. You still have record stores, you have all different kinds of stores, but I think it's really interesting that we're losing that kind of ephemera. And I'm very interested as an artist of the experience of stuff and things. And I think, you know, this could be on the, you know, internet, but we were talking last night that it's still the experience of art for me, even though I'm referencing life and referencing the domestic, it's still, there is the art quality, the kind of formal quality of what I do too. And I like it to be, all my work I hope is experiential, and this is an environment that all of you come. But I like the idea of you hanging out in here too. That you, and also that you have something, a kind of takeaway. You have a takeaway experience, and my new thing, and this started in Rome, is that I love this idea that now these are called love beads, but they're called my souvenirs. So people came to my studio in Rome. I like this idea, you have something, I can give you something, and it's a kind of a takeaway. So I've been collecting beads specifically to each show that I've done, and so I'll make one, there's a lot of you, but I'll make them, and hopefully by the end of the evening everybody gets one. So that's sort of happened. And then, so there's copper beads for copper's good luck. Green is good luck. Green, I think, is a really wonderful color. You guys we've all had a really hard spring and winter. It's, we're waiting for spring. And so I love this idea of bringing color into it. And it was really interesting. We were standing over there, and this whole room glowed green. So that's what I really wanted you to kind of experience color. And I think the kind of physicality of color and light, which is something I'm really, really interested in. So if you have any questions, please ask. This is all new to me, and I'm very excited about this. Because, most art, you come in and you just, you see it, you leave. And I like this idea that, you can come in and you can spend time. And I want people to spend time in this space. I think it's a really nice thing. And but I'm still really interested in this kind of this place between sculpture, painting, installation, even drawing. So and the painters who I love, I feel that I come out of color field painting. I come out of all these different kinds of painting, and so I really wanted, for me, these are big monochromatic paintings. And the work that I did in Europe and in Rome is monochromatic painting, which is something I love, just big hunks of color. And so these, here, let's see. We'll start. You want one? It's the cult of Polly. So
thank you.
You're welcome. Here. So it's a total experiment. I think that, oops, I'm dragging color. So, okay, here we go. I didn't expect so many of you. So, but I'll work hard. Oh, you have green on. So here you go. You're welcome. This is a tiny one. Do we have a tiny? Let's see. Is it going to be too tight for anybody? Is it too tight? Let's see. We'll see. Here, no. Do you have a tiny? We have this. I'll keep this for a kid. So I also thought it'd be really fun for people to stand on the blue shoes. I like that idea of people kind of standing on that. It's almost like going in the airport. I think it's so funny. You have to go like this. So I thought there's, directing people to where you want them to be. And I always, with installation, no matter where I am, I'm always kind of directing people. Like, I like it here best. So here I sort of gave, kind of woven in my instructions. So, and they're my feet. So we're hoping also the Blue Shoes has a kind of musical reference, which I think is really nice. Besides Evergreen Blueshoes, but you think of blue suede shoes, you think of Elvis, you think of all these different things. But I think that, it's funny, I was in the bead store, the kind of crystal store today, of course I had to go, and there was somebody talking about, setting up a commune somewhere, and I thought, oh my God, I'm in the right town. I think it's in the air, and I think that Vermont is this place that, even though I'm fantasizing, but there was this movement of back to the land. I think there's interest in ecology. There's a lot of things are, if you wait long enough, they come back, and people are thinking about those thoughts. So I sort of wanted to bring that into the consciousness of my show. So. Thank you. Anybody? Anything?
First, what do you mean by physicality of color and light?
So, don't you think you feel? Okay. So when I look at a painting, I look this way. But when I walk through an installation, I really feel it this way. And I think you do feel color and light. And it was interesting because there was the space that if you hung out in this space for about the whole day, light comes, I think that how we react to light, and I think I'm not a scientist or whatever, is really interesting, that it's a mood thing too, and that I can, I was in the installation in Portland, and I was just sitting in there, and the color would come, the light would come, the light would go. I felt like I was kind of on a roller coaster ride of emotion, and just, I think that for me, even if you look at kind of in a spiritual way, thinking about light and thinking about painting, or somebody like Barnett Newman or Rothko, and this idea of a field of color, a field of light. And so, but I really think, this room, we're attracted to this room, the light was here. It was so beautiful, and I think that for me, the physicality and the sensitivity of that, and that has something to do with spending time in a space too. Keeping, I feel that, you kind of, you go, oh. It's interesting, that kind of emotional roller coaster that light does. It's a fascinating thing for me, and it's something I never knew anything about in my work. And working in different spaces, it's been really wonderful, and it's been something I've been really, really interested in, just kind of investigating. I think, what's it, the deficiency of, there's a yeah, and I really truly believe, and I think that, yeah, and maybe it probably happens a lot in Vermont, don't you think? So that's kind of, for me, it's really interesting that, I think the East Coast has good light too, though. It's really nice. Like, even though we had a lot of snow, you have, just this day when, like today, it's just, it's healing. It's really therapeutic and very beautiful. So that's kind of what I, because you can't have light, you can't have color without light. And so it's also, for me, it's really interesting, this kind of notion of the prismatic color too. This might be the first show that I really chose one color too. It's been really interesting, and the different tones of it, and I think that it's going to be interesting, the different moods of the different spaces.
How did your black and white pieces speak to you?
Interesting, because I was looking at, most of them happened, and I have to, with this attention of line, not so much, and seeing form. Sometimes I really love seeing things without the color, and I have done, it's maybe the contrary thing too, because people think, oh, she only works with color. So I love, I think black is pretty amazing. It's a really interesting color, but I think you'll go upstairs and there's something that you said, so I won't spoil it. So that's a really interesting question. But for me, that in the work, the printmaking, and I'm trying to think, I haven't used a lot of black. I've done black and white. I have a piece called Cartoon Garden. So that's probably the largest black and white piece that I did that's flowers. And what was interesting is that for me, it was about drawing, and it was about graffiti. So that I love this idea that when people draw, everybody draws. It's kind of this like crazy thing. And I was thinking of outsider artists, like it's this kind of madness. And I was thinking so much of line and black and white. So maybe that's what I've been thinking. But I would say black is a color, but I would say that's a discussion for upstairs.
Holly, I think I've seen a lot of photographs of you as I've been doing research before you
dear.
came here, and I always love what you're wearing. I feel like your color choices, like you wear color with intention. And how was that connected?
Oh God, well, I love fashion. I can't help myself. It's funny, it was interesting because for my birthday this year, No, but for Christmas, I got my horoscope. It was really interesting, the gallery that I work with in New York. They gave me 2 things for Christmas. I was so shocked. I've never been with a gallery that gave me anything. And they gave me a card that gets me into every museum in the country for a year for free, and I thought that's incredible. And then they gave me my horoscope, and I had to find out when I was born. And it said in my horoscope even that you love clothes. You like expensive clothes. And I was like, oh, shoot. So I probably blame my mother. But, you know, I think that clothes, and if you see that one of the things like Marimekko, that's a really 60s thing. I don't know if people know. It's Marimekko was Finnish design, and so, and you know, when I went to, I thought that was, growing up in the 60s, Marimekko was the coolest thing, and it was really strong colored silkscreen fabric, and it's a real 60s thing, so it kind of brings me back to this. And so I love, you know, being an artist and not having to dress, you know, kind of, you know, you go to the studio and you don't, whatever. So my wardrobe is not great, but I have a few nice things. So, and color, I don't like to match or clash with my work, so probably usually wear, like all New Yorkers, wear black a lot, and so, but I do love color, obviously, in clothes, and I love pattern, and I have designed, just recently, designed some fabric, but I'm really interested in textiles too, and I think in the crafts, weaving, textiles, but very sophisticated. There was a textile designer named Jacqueline Larson. I don't know if you knew, but he really, and besides this whole thing, I was saying that, you know, the art world is very fickle, and right now everybody's doing ceramics, and it's great. I'm doing it. I'm riding the bandwagon too. So, but you know, before it was so, oh my God, you're doing that. That's, you know, whatever. So, but weaving too. You'll notice now there's all these textile shows happening, and it's like, Sheila Hicks is really, if people don't know her work, she's in the biennial, she's 80 years old. And it was laid dormant for years. And Jacqueline Larson, years ago, I have 2 books that he did, Textiles as Art. And people were like, oh my God, just don't even go there. It was like, it took like 30 years for this, or 25 years for this to come back. And now people are really noticing. And the crafts, maybe because it has to do as kind of women's work or whatever, but it's taken a long time, and I think it's really interesting. So it's in the air now, it's very sophisticated, but I looked at a lot of textiles, I looked at a lot of craft, but the crafts that I do, I always tell people I really am a bad crafts person. If you know my other work, it's not correctly done, ever. I kind of I figured it out myself, but a real, you know, textile designer, a real potter, I think all of these people are like, oh my God, what's she doing? You know, but I love all that stuff too, and some people still, it's like, I have friends like, oh, macrame, I'm like, oh, bring it on, bring it back, it's great, I love it. So, but you know, I think that that's the interesting thing, is like, you know, bringing in, besides painting, sculpture, installation, drawing, I think I like this hybrid of conceptually, you know, I really like, I'm a material, you know, lover of material and tactility and physicality, but I'm also, you know, I think it doesn't matter where it comes from, you know. I'm also, some things I'm working with are fabricated by other people, some things I'm do it yourself, but, you know, it's all, I think, there is a consistency to the thought, but I really love investigating all these things, and that was so interesting. You know, going online, I never knew Evergreen Blueshoes, following that, and seeing where it will take you, you know, taking a journey with all these different things. And I'm a lover of art and a lover of history, too. You know, I really love reading about all these different times. And I think for artists, my generation, I was very lucky. I came to New York in '78. There's a lot of different things going on. And that just, I'd studied printmaking and painting, but everything, installation was just coming. There was all these different things. And also women were starting to show more and get more attention. So it was really, I think I'm a product of the time that I came to New York and trying to keep that energy going. So, but there's also, so there's graphic design in here too. We in this whole show too, because we graphically, I can't wait till my letters go up, my name that we kind of, and I think it's in here, the kind of, we sketched out, we made a font, we call it the polyfont, and that, here it is. So, we needed to do my name, and so we took the font from here, and so there is a kind of a graphic tie to this too. So fashion, yes, I love clothes, I love pattern and loud, and I think I know the photo you were, I have this crazy dress, a Lanvin. It's just funny, my friend of mine saw it, she said, Paula, you have to buy this. And then I was in an opening and there was a Solowid. And so somebody said, stand by that. It almost kind of looks like a Bauhaus dress. Yeah, no, I have like one or two choice things, and that one got photographed.
Yeah. In our artist resource manual, you get to see it.
The bad thing about the internet is, there's some really bad pictures there of me.
I guess I have sort of a more technical question.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have to go through any sort of legal process to acquire?
Well, now
the cover
that's
of
really
the
interesting.
album?
So don't tell on me. I have no idea. The statute of limitations. Is DJ around?
We're fine, we're fine.
We're fine.
Yeah, we talked to the police chief.
Yeah, I'm just worried one of these guys is going to show up. DJ knows more about the band than I do. I think they were 2 years in the
2 years,
making.
2 years
Yeah,
to
they're
develop.
pretty.
It's pretty obscure, and but today, what's so great, I think, about Burlington is I walked into the Burlington, the record store. There's great. Just look at the posters and things like that. I would go. I was going crazy, but I can't afford it. But I would love to have all those things. And they also mimic. There were artists in the '60s, kind of creating a whole new kind of visual culture and language. And I think that's what, for me, is really interesting. What was happening in the 60s was happening in art, it was happening in design, it was happening in everything. And I think that's, and I don't want to romanticize, but I also, because it was not the war was going on, there's a lot of different things going on, but I think it's interesting to think about and kind of go back and kind of people can make what they want of the time and see where it is, connect the dots. If it is art, and I think, does it relate to what's going on now? Or is that kind of energy? And I emailed DJ, I said, alternative, that's the word I like, because, and a friend of mine said, well, alternative to what? And I said, well, that's the interesting thing. I think it's curious that when you think alternative, and then you make alternatives, and you think about a lot of different things. And I think that's what I like, the kind of potential of that word. So.
Yeah, I think you touched upon this briefly. You said it shows a little different because you didn't make the wallpaper, you didn't make the carpet. So I was wondering if you hesitate when your vision is beyond your skill set and to be the director as opposed to
it wasn't, I'm glad I did it, because I was like, the ambition, I love the scale, and I love that these things are out, I think it's worth it, but at the time it was really hard. I think DJ and Ashley, and my assistants in New York, everyone's like, are the rugs going to be there on time? Is, dealing with the guy and the wallpaper. This was not, because we dealt with a commercial printer. It's not wallpaper printer, because wallpaper is really expensive to print. And so we dealt with a commercial printer, and the guy was just impossible. And I was losing it. And so, it is, honestly, I'm a hands-on person, but the vision, I think it's worth it to go outside your comfort zone And I have 3 shows that I'm lined up that are outside my comfort zone, and then maybe I'll retreat, you know. But I wanted to do this, and I really, and it's kind of crazy because maybe because I had a year off of just working in my studio, not showing. When I got back, it was really interesting. I had thought about all the shows that I knew about when I was in Rome, but I was like, I'm not going to even think about it till I get back to New York. And I had done a rug, and maybe in the packet there's a picture of I'm in a show and it's traveling that was. So right before I went to Europe, I was asked to be in a show of 17 women for Dior, the fashion house. So there's a relationship. But it had nothing to do. What we could do is whatever we wanted to do. It's from an artist like Shireen Nasrad, who did a film with Natalie Portman, because Natalie Portman is well, she was, I think she just got replaced. She was the figurehead of Dior, Miss Dior perfume. So they said, would you like to work with the, what do you call it? The houndstooth. And so I said yes, and what I did is I took houndstooth and I took a pattern that I was blending, a kind of rainbow roll of color, and made a rug of that. But it was within a group show. And so, years ago, I had made a rug for a group show that was a wonderful experience. It was 24 artists. They were asked to do rugs. The same person, the same weavers. So when Dior came to me, I said, I want to make a rug. It just was like off the top of my head. So a friend and I, we tried to find the same weavers. And we did. And at that show, the show 15 years ago, I did their stains. I did stains, and they were woven, and it was black and white. And so, and I still have that rug in my house. And so what happened is, I was thinking about that, but the Dior show was a group show, and it wasn't the context of me. So this is the first show. I thought, then I got back, and I gave a lecture about my work, and somebody asked me, he said, what about rugs? And there was a show, it's funny, in Rome called Flying Carpets. And if you know another artist, if you don't know him, look him up, named Allegory Boetti. Boetti's a wonderful artist. He had, I think he died in the 80s, probably in the late 80s. And he was Italian. He worked in Afghanistan with rug makers and incredible embroidery weavers and stitchers, and really incredible. So I was thinking about the Arte Povera artist too, this kind of art and life blend and that whole movement. So when I got back, somebody asked me, what about rugs? I thought, oh my God, I just made a rug. And I never even thought about that. You know, I'm on the floor. This is ridiculous. It was like a duh, you know? So I thought, rugs. And so then I just was like, oh my God, I have this opportunity, you know? Let's make rugs for Vermont. I have a show in Philadelphia, and each one had a certain kind of idea of place and different kind of tie to painting. And so I just decided. And so honestly, I was like, I got so excited about that, but to answer your question, it is a little bit outside of my comfort zone, because I'm not an artist who ever wanted to like delegate and I work by myself usually. I now have an intern, things like that, but I'm really not somebody who likes to work with other people and organize. I'm not, you know, I'm just like, Portland was such a dream for me. I put the stuff in my suitcase and go online, because I love that show. It's called Color Stations. I took the stuff in my suitcase and I went to Portland and I put it up myself, and I didn't have anybody help me, and I like that. But you know what? I like stretching too, and I like having, and early on, and in my slide talk I showed that I have worked with fabricators before, and really early on in my work, in 1988, I worked with fabricators. So it's not something that I haven't done, but it's something I kind of worked through and then come back again to. That's a long answer. So, but I'm really excited. I really like this idea that people, and this is just such a nice thing for me, to have people in your work. I've been skirting around that. The last the last show that I had in New York City before some older work, but I think it was 2010, it was a show called Off Color. And it was these cut pieces of sequin fabric that had a lot to do with light, and you could walk through. And I have this image of a friend of mine took a picture of these 3 people almost like dancing in my work. And it's just an image that I really love, that people were in a painting. Now this idea that you're on a painting, I think is a really nice thing. Maybe the cleaning of it later will, we'll regret with everything and on the floor. But, for years of being on the floor and worrying about people stepping on it and, these labor-intensive installations that people, just don't see. So. Thank you. And here, I will try and make, my eyes, and these beads, the problem is they're not that big and my eyes are really bad. So I have to get better beads. But I love these because they are copper and they are good luck. So thank you.